All right, so hey everyone. My name is Anushree. I'm here to speak about Chrome DevTools. So let's start off with some productivity boosters or some basics. So as a rule of thumb, I generally always use the incognito mode when I'm inspecting or working with DevTools, because your extensions in your browser really interfere with your network tab, because they download a lot of additional scripts onto the page. And even while doing audits, when you go to the audits tab and you run an audit in a normal mode, it'll actually give you an error saying please switch to incognito, because it will really conflict and skew your numbers, which you don't want. And you can reorder your tabs. So there's this nifty little thing you can just drag and drop, if you can see it. Yeah. So this was a feature that was like long awaited. So I think there's an issue open for a really long time in Chrome, and we finally got it, and it's like really helpful because there are so many tabs in here and you don't use all of them a lot, so you can just rearrange it and prioritize based on the ones that you use frequently, so that really helps. And command menu is your best friend. So command menu is Command, Shift, and P. So this is what I'm talking about, and I refer to command menu. And there is so much here, and it's like you can pretty much do everything using the command menu. That's how the Chrome team is. That's how their roadmap is. They're making sure that anything that you can do via the UI, you can also do via the command menu for just efficiency. All right, some shortcuts. So I'm pretty sure all of you know this, so I'm just going to quickly run through this. This command option I is, let's just see this. So command option and I is going to toggle your DevTools, and when I do command option I again, it's going to open with the network tab, because that was the last tab that was open. So if I do that with performance, it's going to open with performance, right? If I close it, and then if I do the other shortcut, which is command option J, it's going to open with console as the default tab. This is just some small shortcut that you can just know. And yeah, command shift C is for inspect, which you can quickly inspect. Command shift M is for toggling to your mobile view. And what else do we have? Yeah, open the command menus, command shift P, which we already saw. Great. So now that we have these in place, let's jump right into elements, right? So the first feature that I want to talk about is dragging and reordering your DOM nodes. So if you see these three little dots right here, let me bump that up, if that's fine. Can you all see it? Yeah, is that better? Cool. All right, so let's pick a particular element. Okay, so I'm going to pick this heading right here. So that's this h1 tag right here, right? So if you see these three little dots, so you can just pull it and reorder your DOM elements right here. So I mean, as a developer who hasn't got any design background, I try to build my own screens, and I just test out my own layouts, because I'm not a designer, so I don't know which layout looks best. So this feature really helps me out. I just reorder them and see which one looks better. Should this be at the top? Should this be at the bottom? So this is just a nifty little thing that helps you out there. So let's jump right into the next one. Okay, so there's this color picker that I do not know if you all might have used. So we have this color right here, right? So if you click on this little square, it's going to open up this widget. So have you all used this before? Show of hands. Cool. All right. So there is this contrast ratio, which is really important for accessibility. So as you can see right here, unfortunately the Google website is failing on the contrast ratio, so it's not accessible, although they're preaching it and they're building the tools for it, which is ironical. But all right, so if you just open this up, right, so you see these two lines right here, two white lines. So anything below the first line is AA compatible, and anything below the second line is AAA compatible. So ideally we should be in the sweet spot between the two of them. So something like this. So as soon as I clicked in between the two lines, you saw that it turned green, right? So for AA, it turned, you see a green tick right there. And if I select a color below the second line, you see a double tick, which means it's AAA compatible. So these are simple things that will just make sure that you put accessibility first. And just in case your designers do not have this as part of their workflow, please make sure that they add it. They have to make sure that their color palette is completely accessible and has this it passes all these contrast ratio checks before they hand over the designs to you. So yeah, that's just something to keep in mind. And this also has a bunch of other things that you can do. You can just toggle between your different color formats, and you can just play around with opacity. Yeah, a lot of cool features in here. And also, there's this other trick that you can do. If you hold Shift and then click on this colored square right here, it's again going to switch between your different color formats, between RGB, HSL, and your favorite hex code. All right, moving on. So there is this accessibility tab right here, which I did not know about myself until recently. So this is one of that hiding in plain sight features that I was talking about. It's right here as a tab, but I never used it. So you just inspect any particular tag, and if you scroll down, I think I should pop this out. Doc. All right. So it tells you what are the ARIA labels that are being used, right, or not used in this case. There aren't any specified. So if you're actually building a proper website with all accessibility features in mind, then it'll nicely list down everything right here, so you can get a good look and inspect and understand what needs to be tweaked, what is already available, what's happening. So this is pretty useful feature, I would say. Let's restore last stock position. So as you can see, I'm a big fan of the command menu. It just lets you do a lot of things. Okay, I'm gonna, since we all are developers and we just really enjoy living on the bleeding edge of technology, so why not try out some Chrome 76 features on Canary, which hasn't been released on Chrome yet. So this is Canary right here, which I have on another window. So I just want to show one feature of Chrome 76 because it's pretty cool. So I'm just going to inspect and add a style right here. I think I need to bump it up. All right. Okay, can you all see this? Cool. All right, so there is this new autocomplete CSS feature which has come up, which is pretty cool. Like if you search for bold, so you cannot do this before, because bold is a value, right? I'm searching for a value, and it's giving me the entire attribute, and it's letting you autocomplete. So if I just give enter, it's going to autocomplete for you, which is really, really cool. So you can also do a lot of other things, like if you type larger, it's going to tell you, font size, and it's going to give you that autocomplete already. So it really makes your workflow way faster, so you don't have to type a lot of attributes in your DevTools and waste time. So that's another productivity tip. All right, so some more shortcuts for you. So I only knew about this one right here before this talk. So in preparation for this talk, I learned a lot of new things. So this is some of them. So you can actually bump up your CSS values. Let's say you're tweaking with the margin, trying to make it pixel perfect to your design, right? So you're like really fine-tuning that margin or that padding value, then you can really use these shortcuts. So if you hold on Option, then let me just show you quickly. Let's inspect something. Okay, let's inspect this heading right here, right? So let's go to Styles, and let me add a margin, right? So let's say 10 pixel. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to hold Option, and then, is that changing? Yeah, it's very small, so you can't see it. So if I hold on Option and then tap on up arrow, it's going to increment a little bit by 0.1, and then down arrow will decrement it. If I hold shift, it's going to bump it up in multiples of 10, and if I hold command, in multiples of 100. Just pretty nifty. All right. Network tab. Woohoo. Okay, so this is something that I really have to spend some time, and I have to share a scar story that I have. So what I'm talking about right here is this innocent looking checkbox right here, which kind of made me go crazy, because I was new to this front-end development, and I had no idea how browsers worked. I had no idea how caching worked. So at that point, I was assigned a bug fix, and I fixed the bug in my local. It was all working fine, and then I pushed it, and it was deployed on dev environment. And then I tried to test it on the dev environment, and it was not working. I was like, where's the fix? I deployed the fix. It's working in my local, but it's not working on the dev environment. What the hell is happening? I was like going back and forth, looking at every possible scenario. And then I understood later on from many hours of Googling later, I understood there is something called caching, and there is something called cache busting, which is even more important. So let me just break that down for anyone who hasn't understood. So what happens is you make a change in a file, but you also need to change the file name in order for the browser to make a new request. So what happens is, generally that happens using some algorithm like MD5, because so MD5 algorithm it takes the content of the file and it generates a hash value and it appends it to your file name. So every time you change the contents of a particular file, your file name gets changed, right? And the reference to that file name in your index.html changes. So when your browser passes through your index.html, it's going to make a new request to a new file rather than request the same file. If it was the same old file name, right? If the file name hasn't changed, but the contents of the file has changed, which means the browser will already have a cache copy of your old file. So how the request goes is your browser will first make a request to its own cache. So if it's a cache hit, which means that file is present in the browser's cache, it will not make a request to the browser at all, right? Only if it's a cache miss, then it makes a request to the server. So that's why changing the file name is so important, so that your browser sees a cache miss and then makes a request to the server and eventually fetches the right file. So I was clueless about all these things when I started out, and I was like, why is it not changing? It's working in local, it's not working in my dev environment. Something magical is happening here. There's nothing magical. So yeah, so this innocent little checkbox, that's the reason, right? So you check that, and you also do things like empty cache and hard reload, and also you have a proper cache busting mechanism in your server, so that you have a proper hashed file name for every deployment, so that you don't run into issues like that. So yeah, always have it checked, guys. Don't forget. All right, so throttling. So throttling is just a simulated way of seeing how your browser works in in a slower network. So if it's fast 3G, you can just reload it, and then you see that it's going to take way more time. And you can see how your browser, how your app's experience is in a slower network. So that's a really nice way of just seeing how it works. And okay, there is another cool feature here, which I have never used. I generally use it only for one thing, when I really want to see if my font is loading at the right time. So there is this capture screenshot feature right here, this video icon that you can see, right? So if I click on that, and then if I do a refresh, it's going to take a screenshot while the page is loading. So it's going to continuously take screenshots while the page is loading, so that you see the transition. Okay, I should have swapped this fast 3G thing, because it's really slow. All right, so if you double click on one of the images, you can see, okay, this is the initial state of the page, and then how it gradually started loading, and what loads first, what loads next. So a really important, you can really catch one important bug here using this feature, which is whether you have actually included font display swap or not. So what happens is most browsers will wait for a couple of seconds until the font has loaded. They don't show the text until the font is loaded, right? So we don't want that. We want the text to be present right from the get-go, so that if the user wants to read it and start interacting or just scroll through, we don't want them to see an empty page. That's the point, right? So because of that, there is this really nice CSS property that we use called font display swap. So if that is not being used, you can see via these screenshots that, oh, the text here is missing. I don't see the heading right here. But in this case, it's there. But in your app, you can test it out if that's the scenario, and you can catch that bug so that your users actually see the text up front. Okay, let's move on. Okay, so selecting multiple filters. So these are some of the filters that you see right here. So if you, let's say you're debugging your assets, right? So you've added some cache policy in your asset server. You've made one of your asset servers, you've migrated them to HTTP2 or something like that. So you just want to see them. So these filters you can do only one at a time if you just do them. You just click on them like this. But if you hold your command button and then you click on another filter, it's just going to append to it. So you can see the images as well as the fonts now, and the media. So just holding down command is going to help you, have multiple filters, which is pretty cool. So let me undo whatever I did before so that it's a little faster. Cool. Okay, what's the next one? All right. So there is this filter search right here, right? So you can search for, there are a bunch of predefined values which the documentation provides, which you can take a look. So I'll just demonstrate some of them for you. So the first one is status code. You can see which are the ones that have failed. You can give 200 and all the success requests are going to come up. If you give 401, there isn't any 401. So another thing that you can do is larger than. So if you want to filter by size and see which are the really big files that you're sending down the wire, and you want to avoid that, right? Because you don't want to send huge assets or huge JavaScript files. It's not great for performance. So we add in this filter right here, and these are in bytes, by the way. So 100 is 100 bytes, and 10K is 10K bytes. So if you give 10K, it's in the size column right here. You can see it's all about 38, 31. So there are so many filters right here. You can even put regular expressions here, so you can really filter it down, which is really nice. Okay, so network columns sort or add more columns. Okay, so this is really simple. You have this feature in most tables, but it's not obvious. You can just click on them, and it'll sort based on ascending or descending. Right now it's in descending, which is why the Y is at the top. And then you click again, it's in ascending. So every column you can do this, right? So where this, and if you click on waterfall, it goes back to the chronological order. So the order in which the page actually starts requesting. So if you just want to reset it, you can either do refresh or you can tap on waterfall. So each column you can sort it in ascending or descending. So which is pretty nice, which is really useful. And when it comes to columns like size or time, you can see which are the really big assets that you're pulling down, which is the request that's really taking a long time. So you can do that, and adding some more columns. So there is you can also do a right click on your header right here, and you can add domain, which is pretty useful if you want to inspect a particular asset server and you want to see what's happening to all the assets that are coming from a particular server alone. You can choose domain, and then you can filter based on that. So if you tap again, it's going to sort it, right? So again, it's all going to get clubbed together. So now you can see, okay, everything from youtube.com, you can see everything from gstatic.com, and things like that. So there are a lot of different columns right here which you can add and play around with. So for lack of time, we're just running through it. Okay, compressed size versus the original size. Okay, so earlier there was this feature called use large, this button is there, right? Use large request rows. So the only way you could see what was the actual size of the content was by clicking on this, because here you will see what is the original size, what is the size of the content that was sent over the wire, and what is the original size of the content right here. But now you don't need to do that. You can just hover over it, right? So it shows you 38 KB is transferred over the network, and the actual resource size is 201. So where is this actually useful? Let's go to Java. Let's filter by JavaScript or CSS. All right. So what does it actually mean, and where is this actually useful, right? So what this actually means is that your compression is actually working, right? So in your asset server or in your front-end server, whatever you're using, you will have some kind of compression taking place. You'll either have gzip or Brotli, so that you really send very minimal data down the wire. So you can just quickly check whether that's working just by hovering over this and seeing that the amount of data that you're sending over the wire versus the original size it has to be lesser. If it's equal or if it's more, if these two numbers are equal or the first number is more, then that means either you've turned off your compression or it's not working. So that's something, there should be alarms going all around if compression is not happening, because you get huge gains from gzip and Brotli, and you should be using it. It's just one of those things you should not be missing out on if you want your app to perform well. So awesome. Okay, so there's this really cool feature in command menu, so which I'm going to show you. So I remember doing this a lot. So if you have like a really huge page, if you want to take a screenshot, right, you take multiple screenshots. And then you open like 3-4 images to see one page. But then you have this feature now which will, you can just take a screenshot of full size screenshot, right? Let's select that and see what happens. It'll give you an image, okay? So let's save that to full size, save, and let's open that. Okay. So, oh no, I zoomed in a little too much. So this is the entirety of the page in like one image, which saves you a lot of time. So otherwise you'll be like taking like 5-6 screenshots by scrolling, which is just a sheer waste of time. So that's pretty cool. Okay, what is the, where were we? Okay, all right. So the next one is screenshot of a particular node. All right. So if you're using some application, right, and you want to do you want to file an issue, you want to file a bug report, and you want to just take a screenshot of a particular place, not the entire app, because all your sensitive data is on there, or you have to take a proper screenshot and then like use some tool to like crop it out, which we don't want to do. So there is another screenshot feature right here, which is for node. So capture node screenshot. So I have to select a node for that first. So let's select this heading right here, and then go for capture node screenshot. So it just takes a screenshot of that alone, which is nice. All right. So this keeps changing every time I do this. Okay, so HAR export. Have any of you used this before? HAR export? Cool. Okay, so HAR literally stands for HTTP archive. So what it lets you do is, if you're really stuck with something, right, and you want some help, especially with performance. So let's just refresh so I get everything in my networks right here. So let's say you're in this page right now, okay, and you're trying to inspect something and some weird behavior is happening and it's really causing some performance issues, and you're not able to take a crack at it, or you're working remotely and you just need to share this particular all this data and whatever is happening right now in your computer, you want to share that with someone. So what you basically do is you right-click and you give save all as HAR with content. So this will basically create an archive file for you, and you can share it with somebody else who can import it in their browser, or they can use another tool to go through the files. And whatever requests and data you see on your screen right now, everything will be copied over to their machine. But a huge disclaimer that I have to give you right here is, if you use this feature, please use it with caution, because it will copy all of your data of that particular app, including the sensitive data like the passwords, your credit card info. So please don't export a HAR and upload it to GitHub or Stack Overflow if you're asking a question. Please don't do that. And don't get fired. All right. So that's one of the features. So let's move on to audits. So okay, this is personally my favorite feature of Chrome DevTools out of everything, because I'm just a sucker for performance, anything related to performance. So this is like my most favorite feature. So what this lets you do is basically you can just run an entire audit of your application, and you can analyze it in terms of performance. You can see whether your app meets all the criteria for a progressive web app, how good your app is in terms of best practices, accessibility, and search engine optimization. So you can just check whatever you feel like you want to analyze it for. You can also choose between mobile and desktop. You can simulate your networks and CPUs for nodes for making it as close to a mobile device as possible. And you can run let's run an audit right now. Let's check for best practices accessibility. Run an audit right now. But I just want to give you a heads up. This is just a simulated data. This is not a real data. So this is something that tripped me up when I started out. So I thought, okay, my Lighthouse scores are really good, so it's going to work really well in a real-world environment. Not exactly. You still need to do your, you still need to collect data from users. You still need to do all your analytics work so that you get actual user data from from people using your app all over the world, so that you really see what's happening in their connectivity, in their device and whatnot. So this is what it looks like. So unfortunately, we do not have time to go over all of this, but I would love to do another talk on that, because these are just amazing. But the best thing that DevTools does is it gives you these links, right? So when I started out, like a couple of years ago, I knew nothing about performance, and all I did was I started off with this audit tab right here. I ran an audit on my app, and I just started reading each and every link that was inside, So I didn't know what first contentful paint meant. It was like someone was just throwing some jargon at me. I was like, what the hell is that? I don't understand. So I was like, okay, there is a link. Let me read about it. So I did. And then I was like, what is first contentful? What is first meaningful paint? I don't know what that is. Okay, let me read about that. So eventually, in due course, I read every single link, and I was like, this makes sense now. I know a thing or two about performance. Not bad. So yeah, I would advise that you try the same, because the docs are really good. The Chrome team is doing a great job in maintaining them. So yeah, so and the best thing about the audit report that you see right here is it is so human friendly. You can be a beginner. You can still understand what these errors mean, like differ off-screen images. It kind of makes sense, right? It's not. Of course, these terms are like a jargony, but these hints that you see right here, they are pretty human understandable. Pretty it's pretty nice. Anyone can understand what's really happening, a gist of it, and then you can dive inside and take a closer look and really drill down deep into it. So yeah, as you can see, they really don't score well on accessibility, as we saw, the contrast ratio and the lack of ARIA labels and whatnot. So yeah, so there is this another thing that you can do. So you can run as many audits as you want, right? You can run another audit for the desktop. So we ran for a mobile right now. You can run another one for desktop, and it'll temporarily cache all of these reports. So you can just use the drop down that's present at the top to quickly jump between the two reports and see what the differences are. So in this drop down right here, this is the mobile one. So it was 61 for performance in mobile, and it was 55 in desktop. So it temporarily caches it. It's not permanent. If you want to retain a copy, you can just download the report. So it's just a huge file with all of these data that is it's just aligned in a nice, pretty way. So use your audit. So I would say this should definitely be part of your build pipeline, and your development cycle. So what I do personally is I run audit every time I make a pull request, before and after actually. So I run it initially on the branch and see what the metrics look like, and then once my feature commit is added to the branch, and then I run again to see what kind of regression I've caused, if I've really affected the performance in any way, or if I've caused any kind of detriment to performance in any aspects, because these metrics will really tell you, right? So, and I've seen that most projects have added this Lighthouse bot to GitHub itself. So your build will automatically fail and your PR will get rejected if you don't meet your performance standards, which is really good, because that's how you enforce your performance metrics and your performance standards, right? So yeah, so I would just love to talk about this tab right here that you see. this oh my god, I am lost for words to describe it. So there is this, it's an ocean, okay? It's like an ocean. There is so much happening in this tab. Like there is so much that you need to know, right? But I just thought about it a lot, and I realized I cannot do justice to it in 20 minutes. So I was like, this has to be a whole different talk, because I cannot just come in here and throw jargons or just acronyms at people and expect everyone to understand them, right? The point of the talk is someone should learn something new. So I was like, I need time, so I'm gonna do a whole other talk. So if you're interested, just show of hands. I would definitely be willing to do a talk on that, so that I can establish some performance concepts, and then we can in real time like analyze an app and see what are its performance bottlenecks, where the scope for improvement is, yada yada yada. Right. So I would like to conclude with like one pro tip. So how many of you have been in meetings which are like ridiculously boring, but then you have to like passively listen, because at any moment they're gonna call you and be like, hey, so what do you think? And you cannot be embarrassed, at that time, like, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. You can't say that, but you have to be passively listening, right? So at that time, what can you do? You cannot check Twitter, you cannot check your socials, because you kind of get distracted too much. So the passive listening gets out of the picture. You cannot read a blog post, you cannot do much, but what you can do, my friend, is open up this little command menu and just play around with it, because I assure you, it takes you under 10 seconds to learn something new. You can still listen to whatever nonsense they're talking about in the meeting, and you can learn something new and make a good use of your time. And there is so much in that menu. It's like, there's a lot of learning there. So that's my pro tip. And these are the references that I use that I really have to give shout out to some of these people. So the first thing is the official docs. There's this developer called Case, who makes amazing YouTube videos. He works for Google, and he's one of the technical writers. So you should check out his YouTube videos, which are really, really nice. So, and there's this developer called Umar Hansa, who has been speaking about DevTools exclusively. He's like this DevTools god, is what I call him. He has his website with a lot of DevTools, which are amazing. So I really got interested in DevTools after watching one of his talks like 2 years ago. I attended RenderConf in 2017, and he was speaking there, and that's when I really realized that there is so much to DevTools, more than what we think about. So I was like, okay, it's just, you can just edit some CSS, you can just check whether your API call is failing or not. I thought that's all DevTools is all about. But then he showed some really, really cool features of DevTools, and I was like, Okay. And also, John Cooperman has an amazing hands-on workshop in Front-End Masters. If you have a license, you should check it out. He goes through every feature. It's like a deep dive. So if you're completely new, or if you just want to brush up your skills and know everything about DevTools, that's the course to watch. So shout out to all of them. So you should check out these links. I'll share my slides with you. And please give me your feedback on my talk if you liked it, if you want to hear a specific topic, or constructive criticism is great. So I welcome that with open arms. So the link is bit.ly/chrome-devtools-feedback. So I would really appreciate it if you take a minute or two to do that. And thank you so much.